Hi, friends. If I've sent you this link, it means that we are probably getting ready to play a Doctor Who role-playing game. And if I haven't sent you this link and you've just happened to discover it, well, that's okay. Stick around. That's okay too, because what I'm going to do is give you just a little basic overview of how the system works and how to interpret your character sheet. This is not going to be a comprehensive review, nor is this going to be a detailed drill down of how the game works. There are plenty of videos out there for that, and you can also get the rulebook if you want. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the Doctor Who role-playing game, Making Sense of Your Character Sheet. First of all, just a real brief overview of how the game works is what you do is you take a look at your attributes, you select an attribute, select a skill, select a trait, roll 2d6, and you add all of those values together. A general view of how the difficulty ratings go, there's a great big detailed drill down in the rulebook, but I'm just going to select a few. If you roll a 12, then that's kind of a normal activity, such as driving a car. If you roll an 18, that's the equivalent of picking a lock or treating a gunshot wound. Something that would be very difficult, a 24, would be repairing a fused computer or recalling an entire speech from memory. And nearly impossible if you're hitting 30 on 2 dice. You could heal a rift in time with a chocolate bar. So you're like, okay, so I've got to select attributes, I got to select skills and traits, and of course the 2 dice. What are my attributes? Your attributes are first awareness. Awareness is basically your 5 senses. What can you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch? What is your general perception? This is something that you would use for passive perception rolls of did I notice something, or if you're trying to look for something. Second attribute is coordination. This handles anything to do with your dexterity and your hand-eye coordination. Ingenuity is a big one in the Doctor Who world because a lot of the things that people are doing are done with their wits and outthinking their opponents. So ingenuity is pretty critical role if that's the kind of doctorish kind of character you want to play. So these are all of your intellectual abilities. It's your lateral thinking capability and your creative thinking ability. Presence is another one that has a pretty big role in the series. Your presence is how charming or charismatic you are. Can you get people to attract themselves to your character, or can you use your character somehow to your advantage? Can you be persuasive, or can you be intimidating? Because a strong presence doesn't necessarily have to be likable. Resolve. Resolve is your ability to use your willpower or your determination. You could also use it not just for yourself to steel yourself against an emotional or mental attack, but you can also use it to instill confidence or morale in others. Resolve would either resolve or presence would be the sort of attribute that you would take if you're trying to stare down an enemy looking for a prisoner and you want to tell them, look, this planet is protected. So basically run. Strength, it's pretty much what it sounds like. How strong is your character? How much can you lift? How much can you deal damage? How much can you resist damage? So those are your basic attributes. If you want to make a roll, select an attribute that is fitting for the situation and combine it with a skill. So what are my skills? Athletics. Athletics is doing pretty much anything physical. Can you jump over a chasm? Can you climb? Can you swim? Or can you ride a horse named Susan? Convince is another skill that if you're going to be making a charming and persuading character, this is one you're going to want to put a lot of build points into. Can you get someone to do something? Can you bolster their morale? Or can you lie? Can you charm? Can you command? Craft is a pretty wide skill. Can you paint? Can you build? Can you blacksmith? Can you dance? Craft may be a little bit kind of blending into technology, depending on what you're trying to do. But generally, if you're trying to do some sort of technical jiggery pokery with what you're trying to build, it's technology. If it's not, then it's craft. Fighting. Again, another one that pretty much sounds like what it is. Can you use a sword? Can you punch someone? Also, can you block someone who's trying to punch you? Can you parry that same sword? Next, knowledge. Knowledge is something that may sound like it's going to bleed into some other skills as well, like medicine or technology. But really, this one is built as your humanities skill. How much do you know alien languages? How good are you at alien history? How good are you at literature? And you might initially think, well, how much do I need to know languages, art history, and literature? Let's take a look at the series. You may very well run into historical figures. You might run into a painter. You might run into Van Gogh. You might find yourself in a major literary work for all we know, like Robin Hood. Marksman. Marksman is your ability to hit a target. It might be shooting a gun, but the doctor doesn't really carry a gun, nor do many of his companions or her companions. But it could be your ability to ricochet a racquetball and hit a vent in the back of your enemy's neck. Also marksman. Medicine. Basically your ability to patch up and heal a friend. Sometimes there are skill rolls if you're high in medicine that you might use to your advantage, but generally this is your healing skill. Science. Science is your theoretical physics or your chemistry or your geology. But science also covers some of the wonderful things about Doctor Who, which is those wild pseudoscientific gobbledygook. If you need to reverse the positronic field generator, that's probably going to be the skill that you're going to be using. Subterfuge is anything sneaky, anything spying, lying, any bit of skullduggery. If you are pretending to be somebody who's completely unaware of the situation and is just cowering in front of these otherworldly creatures and pretending not to know what you're doing when you're pressing all those buttons, that's going to be your subterfuge skill. Last on our skills is survival. How well do you get by in a harsh environment? Do you know how to build a shelter? Do you know how to survive a snowstorm? Technology. Technology is anything programming, repairing, or even boffing together a timey-wimey device or a device with a toaster. Or maybe you're just trying to put something together so that you can track the TARDIS based on its time signature. That's going to be your technology skill. And transport is flying a spaceship, driving a car, flying a helicopter, or maybe even using a motorcycle to climb the side of a building. Anything could happen in Who. Now, how is it that you use your attributes and skills? Skills are not tied to a specific attribute like they are in several role-playing games. Skills are paired with attributes depending on your situation. So you find yourself a situation, you find yourself that you have certain strengths, pick a skill, pick an attribute that both fit the situation. So this game rewards your creativity and ingenuity. If you're not sure, make a case to your GM. And if the combination of skill and attribute makes sense and the GM allows it, use it. So find ways to use your strengths to best suit what you want to do in the scene. So suppose you're trying to defuse a bomb. There are a couple of different ways to do this. If you're really good with coordination and technology, you could carefully maneuver those wires and cross the right wires or snip the right ones to disarm the circuitry. Or perhaps what you really need is the resolve. You really need to summon your nerve and use your science ability so that you can pick this bomb up and carry it to a place where you can throw it into something where it won't do any damage. Both of those accomplish the same ends. Now, I've also mentioned traits. Traits are special abilities that really make your character shine in specific situations. There's a few of them on your character sheet, and I've probably sent you a list of the ones that we'll be using in this particular one shot, or the ones that apply to you and your other party members. But just as a short example, there's one called Run for Your Life, and it gives you a +2 to run away from danger. Brave gives you a +2 to your resolve in order to resist fear. And the Indomitable trait gives you a +4 to resist psychic takeover or possession. So these are very specific situations, but they're the things that give your character the edge in those situations. So if you roll the dice, you're going to roll your 2d6 and you're going to add your attribute and you're going to add your skill, you're going to add your trait if it's applicable. So how do I know if I succeed or fail? Well, there's a gradient level of success and failure. It isn't just a matter of, well, hit the target number 15. If you hit 15, then you succeed. If you get below 15, then you fail. Because depending on how far over that 15 or how far under that 15, there's a gradient level of whether you succeed or not. Most of the rolls aren't just simple yes or no. It's yes, you rolled so exceptionally well that yes, and. So yes, you succeed and you get this additional benefit. Or maybe you didn't succeed, so it's no, but you rolled well enough that you shifted something in the scene to work to your advantage. Or sometimes it's no, but, or yes, but something didn't quite go as well. So if you fail, but you're really, really close, your character actions can still affect the environment positively. Last thing that's going to be on your character sheet that you'll want to take a look at is your story points. You have a pool of story points. You can spend them to improve your roles or activate really powerful abilities. You can, so suppose you have you've rolled your success level as a no. You can spend a story point to make it a no but, or maybe it's a no but, and you can just spend that extra story point to move it to a simple yes. You can gain story points during the adventure by taking a lower result on a roll. Suppose you succeeded, but it wasn't pivotal that you succeeded. You can gain a story point if you really need to replenish your roll or your pool by taking a roll of no but. Also, you can increase your story point ability by behaving dramatically in some sort of appropriate way for the adventure, or also doing something to your disadvantage, but you can use to your advantage later. There's always the number one way of a surefire way of getting into that enemy compound, and that is the two words, magic words, I surrender. GM will probably give you a story point and you can move the narrative along. So that is the basics of the role. But one of the things that makes this system shine is its initiative system. Suppose you're in a conflict with another NPC. You're going to have to roll initiative at some point. It's not a combat heavy game. So once you roll initiative, it's not going to operate like your standard D&D game, because initiative is determined not by who rolls the highest in initiative, but what do you want to do in the scene? Talkers always go first. So if somebody pulls a gun on you, you get to talk down the situation. You can persuade your opponent. You could surrender to your opponent. You can find ways of de-escalating or talking the fight down. The next people who go are runners. Anyone who wants to run away from the conflict, they go next. So suppose that somebody pulls the gun, somebody's not able to talk them down, well, then you can hit the door. Doers are the ones that go next after runners. This is any ability to use a skill or attribute to change the scene. Suppose you want to lay a trap. Suppose you want to press all of those buttons and switches so that something goes critical, so that the person with a gun really has to tend to that instead of shooting you. Well, those are the doers. And fighters go last. There is the ability to have combat in Doctor Who, but it's entirely possible that somebody is either going to talk that person down, run away, or maybe even disabled their weapon at that point before anybody gets to throw a punch or pull a trigger. So those are the basic things that you need to know for our one shot for the Doctor Who role-playing game. There are probably going to be 100 other questions that come up that we can handle while we're in play, but this should give you a basic orientation to what your character can do and how to make sense of your character sheet. If you are by chance not a part of my game and you found this video, then by all means, please feel free to check out the Doctor Who role-playing game at cubicle7games.com. And you can also check out my podcast, where me and my two co-hosts, Brian and James, talk about all things geekery and at the intersection of geek culture and Christian faith at geekatarms.com. Thanks a bunch, and really looking forward to seeing all of you in the game. And yeah, have a good one and enjoy your day.